Who am I? Someone who doesn't have proper glasses. So I'm going to do this. Kate has told me not to look like a teacher with the glasses and everything. I'm on the C++ committee. So here's some of the papers I've written. I think I have a pretty good track record. The ones in yellow are successful papers with the committee. It's pretty good. Most things don't, the committee says no a lot. That's actually my job on the committee, is to say no. That's what I try to do most of the time. If you're only going to read one paper, though, you should read those two in pink. Trust me, they're the best papers I wrote. Let's see, some more credentials. In committee emails, I've gotten +1 responses from Bjarne, like the creator of C++. And more than that. He said, nice rule of thumb and nicely put. So I print these out and like put them in my cubicle at work. And if someone talks about something, I'll be like, Bjarne said, nicely put. And then Herb Sutter, who was like till recently in charge of C++ at Microsoft, Tony's code is righteous. Let's forget about the context. That's like all my code ever written in future past. Tony's code is righteous. That's what Herb said. Oh, well, you just wait. And then I got the slide 3 times. It's like I really like the slide. If you don't know who Sean Parent is, you should all know who Sean Parent is. You should go watch his talks. Not right now, but he agreed with me about something. Could have been where we're having lunch or something. I don't know. And believe it or not, would you imagine who liked one of my tweets? Yeah, Hannah Dusakova. If you don't know Hannah, you really should. She's got the best talk. Also, this guy, he also liked one of my tweets. Anyhow, I've given this talk before, but I felt it just needed a little bit more. So I had an idea, an awful, wonderful, awful idea. So here's the overview. We'll have some slides. I'll be your guide. And on the slides, there will be skeets. Skeets and skeets on every beat. And some tweets still, because that's where it started. There'll also be graphs. Almost half the slides are graphs. Yes, most of them are just for laughs. It's why we have slides. Some slides are for laughs and will go by fast, and others topics will last and last, going on longer with things to ponder. Sometimes I talk about in-depth things like lock-free and atomics, but some might find those quite abomic. Other talks are more high level. That one, oh yeah, that one, which no one's ever seen on. That's the only unrecorded talk I have, which had haiku as its abstract. Some talks were quite high level. Today's might leave you a bit disheveled and hopefully feeling quite bedeviled. I hope. I want to change how you think about programming. All right. So I was summoned and was on Twitter, not anymore, to talk C++ from concepts to BitOrg. However, Twitter has gone awry, but don't decry. Just say goodbye, leave the pigsty, get on Wi-Fi, swing by a place whereby you can reply. It's not for Psi, but perhaps potential is sky high. Come on over to Mastodon. Oh yeah, Blue Sky. All right, one of those, either one. I don't care. How could you guess that one? We had this discussion, modern C++. With that, what is up? Where did it come from? Was it Myers in 2014? Was it Alexandrescu in 2001? No, Strustrup, 1999, paper on modern C++ style. And other languages too as well, and that is fine. That's all swell. C++ just has the lead. It was modern first, which just means it's old and it hurts. Right? You just would like, can we write something more modern? Can we get a modern version of this language, right? Modern JavaScript that's the blue one there. It seems to be kicking some of these. I really look for modern C# in various spellings, but it's all, I don't know, modern Rust. It's too young to be modern Rust, right? Like all Rust is modern Rust. So you have to be a nice old language to have. But then there's like modern Perl. If anyone's ever seen this paper, 93% of paint splatters are valid Perl. So just OCR the paint, you get valid Perl. So modern C++ is old, and if you allow me to be so bold, postmodern C++ is where it's at. So let's see what's up with that. So shall we begin? Let's dive right in. The meaning of a container is the difference it has with the containers that it is not, except vector, choose vector. At this point, I need to explain a guy named Derrida and what he was saying. He made up a word, difference. Maybe you can tell from a glance, it's a mix of difference and deference. It's a word about words. It's a meta word, one that you may never have heard. I'll try to explain, I'll give it a shot. So a sentence is words, some used and some not. Those not used may still add to the thought. A house could be a mansion, a hovel, a nest. You pick the word just more right than the rest. The others being wrong define that which is right. Its meaning, in fact, is found in that light. What? Right? A mansion is defined by how it's different from a house and how it relates to the other words strewn about. Is that okay? If I may. Here's an example. I hope that it's ample. On your phone, if you tap and hold, a context menu may unfold. But if you scroll, then stop, 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 that same menu should not pop. Here's the code for this. Literally, I worked at BlackBerry. This is the code for this. So you, on mouse move, you're like, hey, I don't want if I've already moved and then I pause, I don't want the pop-up coming up. You can only want the pop-up if you pause without moving. Even if you moved a while and then pause, that's because you're reading, not because you wanted the menu to come up. So that's the code that does that. So maybe it's all relative, but I'm a bit sensitive to double negatives. They are not the most communicative. Right? Double negative is if not disabled. What, like, enable menu is what you might say, but how about we go another way? Moved since down. The compiler doesn't frown. To the compiler, nothing has changed. Exact same logic, just a symbol renamed. Right? It's the same. Exactly the same. Like, exactly the same. Although it's subtle, the programmer has less of a struggle. What if other non-mouse code were to be so bold, also needs to be able to make the menu disabled? Is this a menu setting or the state of the screen scrolling? Who's in charge of this variable? The screen code or the menu code? What if some other piece of code comes in, also wants to disable the menu? Is this the right place to reset the menu still, when there's other code for other reasons disabling it? But you're like, well, I don't care. On up, I'm gonna reset my flag. Now here, the responsibilities are clear. Only the mouse code is going to change this variable. Nothing else should ever touch it. It's about the mouse code. One part of the code manages state. The other part decides the menu's state. The menu's fate, that's even better. That's what I'm going to say. One part manages state, the other part decides the menu's fate. A past post I presented, separate calculating from doing. This is its dual, separate state-taining from deciding. It's a work in progress, okay? Calculating from doing was a couple of years ago. This is like yesterday. Separate state from deciding. And now for the comment. So you see this, right? Like we have the code that maintains the state just sets the variable. The code that makes a decision is separate. It looks at the state, but you're not deciding things. The disabled decided things when it should have just been maintaining state. So now this comment, oh, look where it went. It has cemented the code and intent. And the comment's half as big because now it's obvious. It's like, look at the state of the world and decide things. Separate your decision from your state maintaining. Keep your stuff separate. That's all I'm trying to say. Another example. What is the meaning of foo? A function, a variable, an exception you threw? This is an instance of the ultimate deference. The meaning isn't here, it's deferred to elsewhere. Foo is untext, defined only by context. So ladies and gents, does my tweet now make sense? Now it's a skeet, and it's finally graduated to a skeet. Vector is not list. That is the gist. Vector is contiguous in memory. Meanwhile, a list is a travesty. That's what that. Each container has its traits that define the places where they are great. Particularly vector. You don't need a lecture, just use vector. Did I skip a slide? We can turn this into a guideline. When choosing a container, remember vector is best. Leave a comment if you choose one from the rest. This was literally in the standard, and someone took it out recently. I got a rhyme into the standard. It was there from some like 17 to 23. You have to just know the editor of the standard. Choose a container. Remember, vector is best. Leave a comment if you choose one from the rest. But we can generalize this. This isn't just for containers. Container is just a sample, a single example. We can generalize it, patternize it. If you're in the middle of a muddled puzzle that has you all puzzled because of a habitual pattern in this particular matter is not feasible, possible, or probable, you apply this habitual pattern, muddled puzzle, defuzzler pattern. In other words, whenever the typical pattern doesn't succeed, leave a comment just explaining why you went differently. That's all. So this is a generalization. This generalization itself is a pattern applied to patterns. Thus, it is a meta pattern. A habitual pattern, muddled puzzler, defuzzler, meta pattern, which also, being a pattern, can be applied to itself, making it a habitual pattern, muddled puzzler, defuzzler, auto meta pattern. Which means what? Which means if you don't use the expected pattern in your code, and you don't leave a comment explaining why you didn't use the expected pattern, then leave a comment explaining why you didn't leave a comment explaining why you didn't use the expected pattern. Truth is outside all patterns. All right, deconstruction. Derrida was one of the founders of postmodernism and was also the creator of this thing called deconstructivism. Let me explain deconstruction. Take some words, now turn them around. If one word was up, replace it with down. Does that lead to a smile or does that lead to a frown? What normally goes here, put over there. You can do this with skill or not even a care. Now, what do you have? Something moronic? Postmodernists like when it turns out ironic. Once in a while, it's even iconic. The point is to look at your patterns and take them apart, turn them around and see what they're about. It was quite an interesting adventure when it was done in deconstructive architecture. That's what that is called. So, have a glance at the following instance. I've taken an idea and turned it about. It's a wonderful idea. You'll agree, I have no doubt. An API is defined by the code that calls it, not by the code that implements it. APIs are defined by the classes and functions. Not so. It's really the code that is used at their junctions. Is that insightful, iconic, moronic, catatonic? People are... Write examples and tests first, I do say. Anything else will lead you astray. Once API usage has spread out ubiquitous, changing it then would become a big ruckus. Hiram's law is relevant, I see, and of course, obligatory XKCD. Don't have time to read that. But here's another one. We play with some words that are almost the same words. Should be balanced in meaning, but the equation is leaning. Somehow, not understanding is better than misunderstanding. How can that be? Does anyone see? Thoughts on that? Just waiting to see what the next slide is. All right, we have an optional int. Like it's either an int or it's empty. That's what optional in C++ does. We have an optional int and we want to see, does it have a value? What do you need? What should we call? Can you tell it to me? Has value, yes, it's as clear as can be. A standard any can hold nigh anything. To know it's a value, what should we bring? What should we call? Has value. All right. Standard expected holds a foo or an excuse, I like to call it. I'm sorry I couldn't give you a foo, here's an excuse. To check the value, of course, you expect. Yes, has value. Oh, it's perfect. This is great. Standard variant. V holds a red or a blue. The function we want called is has value? Anyone has value? Right. Valueless by exception. That's exactly. What does it mean? If it was called, like, why is it called valueless by exception? By the way, that is I made that. That's my contribution to the standard. I named this function. If it was called has value, you would think you understood what it meant. But it's different than all the other has values. That's why it's like, how does it feel to be wrong? This is a great talk. It's a TED Talk. You should go watch it. Not right now. Hey, I got a talk to go to. A little late. Does anyone know how it feels to be wrong? Yeah. Oh, you're just saying yes, you do. Yeah, you've seen the talk, yeah? Yeah, it's a beautiful talk. I love this talk. How does it feel to be wrong? It feels like being right. Whenever people say, like, how does it feel to be wrong? It's like, no, that's how it feels once you realized you were wrong. When you're wrong, it feels awkward or something, but it feels like being right. Like, it feels awkward once you know, but before, it felt the same as being right. You didn't know you were wrong. And so that's what happens here, right? If you look at something called has value, you're like, I know what this does. I understand it. Really, you don't. If it was called has value, it would be a misunderstanding. You would try to use it, and you would get bad behavior. So it's better to not understand. You look at a function called valueless by exception, you're like, I have no idea what that means. So great, you didn't understand, right? I'm not going to explain what it means because that's the point. You should go look it up. You shouldn't look it up because you should never need to call it. That's like, you won't ever need this function. It's there for completeness, but it's not the same as the has value. And we were going to call it has value. And I was like, no, not understanding is better than misunderstanding. Anything you don't understand, you'll figure out. Things you misunderstand, that's how you write bugs. So also, bonus, API guideline, be consistent. That's the #1 API guideline. If you're consistent, you get to be glaringly inconsistent. When this stuff started coming out in the standard, those first 3 functions had 3 different names. Like there was like is empty, there was has value, there was like is empty is the opposite even. It's not even the same. And one was is valid or something like that. And like so you wouldn't see that you wouldn't see this as anything. Oh, it's just another one with another name. But when you're consistent, the inconsistency pops out at you. Between meals, gotta have some. You must consider the bracket styles in the socioeconomic context of society in which they were formed, i.e. screen size, right? My bracketing style when I had a small screen is different than my bracketing style when I have a big screen. People make such a big racket about where to place a simple bracket. But why put developers in a straitjacket? How we write is as important as what we write. I don't mean to be contrite, so let's be courageous and talk about something that is religious. What is wrong with the first line? Tell me your thoughts and I'll explain mine. Anyone, just for fun? First line? How many what? Oh, to explain what's wrong with the first line? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first thing you should say, it's in red. That's like, it must be wrong, yeah, right? Like that's using your head, it's in red. Okay, sorry. I got lots of colors on my slides, sorry. One if, two if, red if, blue if. That's the theme here. This first line is a pain at a particular time when you're debugging. A breakpoint, yes, that's a great point. These lines are disjoint, so where goes the breakpoint, right? I hate that. Moving along, the second one might be wrong if you write a lot of Python, and then you switch back to C++ or other languages. Now, these two, something from my friend Fabio. This is major versus minor, like almost one-liners for that one. This is for things meant to be inconspicuous, but this one's for things that need special focus. So yes, in my code, I switch between styles. I let circumstances decide which is worthwhile. Fixed formatting, when forms, yeah. Fixed formatting is like trying to rhyme everything. Sometimes it just gets in the way of understanding. Allowing a variety of formatting can be something quite liberating and helpful when communicating. I mean, basically this whole thing is I hate Clang format. I would like to be able to just write the code. Just don't take it too far. This code won an obfuscation Oscar, obfuscation award. It was written by this guy. Obviously, it calculates pi. The size of the diameter is the algorithm's parameter. Make the circle bigger and you get a more accurate pi figure. Yeah, I'm impressed. All right, all presentations have graphs. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. Rabbit versus duck. All right, yeah. You're saying, turn your head just to duck if you want to see the duck. It's a 130-year-old joke, okay? It's not a new joke. It's been around. All right, bugs versus line of code. Yeah. Really, the line's not straight, right? Someone should probably know this. This can be slide 108, I think. Yes, for every line, there is a bug. For every bug, a hole is dug. Debuggers, profilers, sanitizers you lug. Some more caffeine you have to chug. Add an if, that always works. Big picture understanding, shirked. But an if is a line, so an if is a bug. Sometimes all we can do is okay, removing all that aftermath so we can see the original graph. Unfortunately, this is more like what the graph is like. As you add lines, the bugs will spike. So sadly, the line is not at all straight, but we'll come back to this. Just wait. First, more graphs. This is a graph. Wait. Oh, I meant it's a giraffe. Sorry, it's a giraffe. Wait, it's a giraffe of height from distance over shoulder. Yes, it's a giraffe of height versus distance. Very accurate. Very accurate. Wait, this is also a giraffe of surrealism versus the progression of the talk. Warning, we are here. Actually, maybe near the ear, but not yet at the ossicones. Anyhow, back to a simpler tone. Graphs per slide. Somewhere in here. This one's surprisingly linear, slides per slide. Until we reach the slide here. Modern is slides with graphs. Postmodern is graphs with slides. Graphs with slides. Actually, this would be more correct because the slide self-reflects. Here's another term, but I think maybe you get the pattern. Right? Okay. Wait, that seems wrong. Let me see, I can fix that somehow. Well, time for the ultimate fix. All right. Start back up for a second here. So where was I? All right. I think this was the slide that's supposed to be next. Maybe just explain what occurred. Was this slide connected to the projector? Self-referential code. Used to work for a projector company. That must have been what happened. So this class is self-referential. Maybe it has some potential. This code folds in on itself, but does it do it quite enough? Let's add some CRTP to this stuff. You guys know what CRTP is. So that's CRTP up there. Where you're going to pass in yourself as a derived class. So foo passes itself into its base class as a template parameter. Instead of this, we get self because it's there and it points to itself. It's bliss. Everyone hates that this is a pointer. It's like it should have been a reference. Of course, it's never that quite easy. C++ rules can make you queasy. You need to add a lot more code to make that work. But is this grand? No, it is not. If you saw a code base using self, you'd be like, what? What? We already have enough paradigms. My old manager from Adobe. I've used this quote many times. Having too many paradigms is not sublime. New patterns mean more to learn. If I saw this code, I'd be concerned. Right? If you went to a new office and you're just like, what are you guys doing? Like this is not how everyone writes code. Also doesn't work with multiple inheritance and stuff, but that doesn't matter. All right. Okay, this slide is back. What we lack is a tack that gets this code back on track. And unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. That's straight from the Lorax. That is not, this is the picture on the internet. This, it's gonna, where did it go? Did I get rid of that slide? Okay, we'll figure, maybe it comes up later. There's a better picture than this. There's the really gloomy, dark one. It's scary. That's the real one from the book. Anyhow, postmodernism began in 1951 when David Wheeler, Stroop's thesis advisor, invented the subroutine. I hope it catches on. That's all right. Postmodern didn't start in 99. It began with the subroutine. In a moment, you'll see what I mean. I found this amazing report. It's only 2 pages, very, very short. This paper is marvelous. There's things here for all of us. It's not by me, so it makes me jealous, but I'll let the author's words tell us. A self-contained part of the program. That's the subroutine slogan. An entity of its own. I know your mind is blown. He says something courageous. Although you don't need subroutines, they're usually advantageous. You could just write everything in main. It'd be, it's fine. Allows the coder to concentrate one section at a time. The rest of the program doesn't intrude. You can concentrate on each part in solitude. It's like you could code in a box. This kind of stuff will blow off your socks. And test it in isolation. This is a revelation, such a fascination. It calls for celebration. This technique deserves adulation and replication. Libraries. Take the code from here, it's going to be reused over there. That's so useful, it's not even fair. You can do this all without pulling out your hair. Sort of. Which was hard in 1951, but today, nope, still not fun. Using libraries still sucks. Making it all work can take a bit of luck. In C++ at least. In other languages, it's not a beast, but C++, it's dependency management. So subroutines are bleeding edge, but it will catch on, IL edge. And here's why I consider it postmodern. I find functions an underused pattern, and that is my concern. It's like, why don't, these things have been around, why don't we use them? That's what I'm saying. So let me tell you a fable that's able. A bitchin' depiction, somewhat fiction, but a suitable rendition, a manifestation to aid elucidation, and a fine addition to my collection. I searched their code base for step 1 to get a feel of how our code is done. Actually, this was a previous company. Don't blame the new company I'm at. Code is bad everywhere, right? Like, we all know that. But this is older code. Here's a simple sample that we can trample. Step 1, do some stuff. Then steps 2, 3, 4, then that's enough. Right? Do you really need to be ultra keen to put step 1 in a subroutine and then give it a name? Like step 4. It's right there, unused name. What a shame. Like, validate that. You could have just called it that. Writing functions is an underused pattern that seems to be too postmodern. But the search also uncovered, well, some duplication was discovered. Like, exact same step 1. How many times must the same code be seen before you will make it a subroutine? Anyone? 3. Yes, the right answer is actually 1. It need not be duplicated at all in order to elevate it to a function call. Come on. I ate all this chocolate. I'm sorry, it's gone. I should have saved one. Okay, but don't get carried away. This comment is the same as the comment above. Please put the comment into a lambda and call it from common locations. That was a coworker of mine. Like, that was really what he wrote in the thing. Oh, that was great. Why is it so hard? Why is subroutines the thing that we disregard? Right? Like, is it laziness, craziness? I think there's no hocus pocus. The answer is focus. Too much narrow focus in the wrong dimension. We need to widen our focus to another direction. Here's the thing. You've got a problem close at hand. Your mind holds all its context, a complete map of the land. So if you were to make a function call, you're afraid that this edifice will start to fall. What you've built will start to crumble. All those thoughts will jumble and tumble. You stumble and fumble, left there to mumble and grumble. But if I may, there's another way. With functions, you put each small problem away. Then there are less things in your brain that need to stay. You are left with functions that each do one thing. And these are the advantages it brings. Right? No reuse is the last of things. It's like separation of concerns, isolation. All right, last tweet. I don't know how, oh, I'm going fast. I'm going fast. I always go fast when it rhymes. Two readers reading the same source may see different values due to what each read and wrote previously. I love that it doesn't fit in 140 characters. This is the epitome of postmodern tweets from me, right? So if I'm an English major, source is some piece of text, the source that you're discussing. And how it's interpreted is based on reader context, right? Similarly, if the reader is a coder, their background can make the source code misunderstooder, right? But if the reader is a CPU thread, then source is a piece of memory whose value is usually a mystery when coding anything lock-free. So this tweet is multi-level. When I wrote it, I was being very careful. Onions have layers, coding has layers. All right. Conclusions. In sooth, I know not why all code's so bad. It wearies me. You say it wearies you. These are the, this is from the Coder of Venice, if anyone has read that one. Way ahead of its time, you know. It's the opening lines of whatever, what's it, Merchant of Venice. Coder of Venice, opening lines. Actually, Venice is known for its glassware, so it was a very early Silicon Valley, or Silicon Marsh, more like, kind of. All right, conclusion. So I think we got time. To explain this properly, I think I really need to go back to the beginning for a minute and explain, kind of give you a like postmodern critique of my talk, right? It's not a bad conclusion, but I think we really need to, just a second here. Let me see. Let me get back to the beginning. All right, here we are. So a postmodern analysis, postmodern programming, a postmodern look at programming by Tony Eerd by Tony Eerd. Right? So why Twitter or Blue Sky? Right? Why would the author of this weird thing use Twitter as his medium of focus of communication? Well, it's very constrained, right? It used to be 140 characters. Now it's 280 characters, 300 characters on Blue Sky, right? But also you're trying to communicate in a very constrained environment. That's what programming is, right? Like you're trying to communicate in a constrained environment. Why Dr. Seuss? Because Dr. Seuss is awesome, obviously, that's why. No, it's common experience, right? Like I'm trying to what's the word? Pull from a common experience. And it's also about formatting. If you're forced to format everything into a poem, that's like an extra constraint on your communicating. But also, question mark, common experience. I've given this talk in Europe, and then I find out there's people who's like, I don't know who you're talking about. Who's Dr. Seuss? It's like, oh yeah, it's in English. But I told, like, if your first language is not English and you want to teach your kids English, Dr. Seuss, that's the way. That's the way to learn English. Like there's best books ever. So, what is common experience really? And why graphs? Why did I have graphs that have no meaning actually inside of them? Because that's the pattern, right? I have to follow the pattern of a talk. Talks have patterns, so I have to follow the pattern. And difference, what was that all about? Why did the author choose to go this direction? Right? It's all, the difference is about syntax and meaning and the context that you get. Between syntax and context, you get meaning, right? And why Bruce Lee? Because he's cool. But it's references, right? What's with all the references? Are these common experiences? Or are you people too young for Bruce Lee? Like if I've just aged myself out, I don't know. And deconstruction. Deconstruction, the idea is to give you new perspective, right? Like take apart what you were thinking and think about what you were thinking, right? Think about what you're coding and stop for a minute and take it apart, right? And if statements, more formatting, more communication. I don't want to be constrained at how I communicate my if statements. Bugs. Okay, here we go. This is like the problem, right? We're finally getting to the point. Or at least the manifestation of the problem. It's not the source of the problem. Bugs are just a manifestation of the problem. And I don't know. I don't know what the author was thinking when he put this slide in. But it's ambiguity, right? It's like it's still patterns and context. It's like a giraffe doesn't look like a graph, but in this context it does, right? And then you get ambiguity and patterns and ambiguity. You have to be aware of these things when you're writing code. It's good to see things differently, right? It's like open your mind up a little bit. See things a little different sometimes. Oh, this is, nope, I gotta skip over that. I didn't update this slide. It's the self-reflection slide. All right. And then we're finally like maybe at a solution. What's the solution to the problem? Is this a potential solution? If it was just so simple, like wouldn't we just say like people don't write enough functions, right? Like that's the meaning of life. That's it. Oh wait a second. Now the meta-analysis is making references again. Like we've got references, and then meta-analysis is making references. I really need to say something about these references. So a postmodern comment of the postmodern analysis of postmodern programming, blah 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 blah. This is a reference to Monty Python's Meaning of Life, which just says it's all simple. People don't wear enough hats. But like, where do the references end? Like, where does the common knowledge end? Should we reference the crappy Gavin paper here? Okay, sorry. Let me explain. An explanation of postmodern comment, of postmodern analysis, postmodern programming, postmodern look at programming by Tony Vineyard, by Tony Vineyard, by Tony Vineyard, by Tony Vineyard. All right. This is a reference to a comment about a reference that got left in a paper. This was published this way. And this is the paper. It was later corrected, but like, it was reviewed and it just got left there. But I found that reference because it was referenced in this paper, which is, of course, a paper on monads. All talks must talk about monads at some point. And if you have all exactly the same experiences and things as me, you would get all these references. Like, you know, how is it possible to understand that many references? It's not. Just the same problem with code. Avoid pointers and references. Use value types. Just get rid of the references. It's so much easier. All right. This is the real conclusions, right? Like, when we write code, we have to communicate with the compiler. Like, here's what I want. But I'm only talking to the compiler, or now it's like, there's another one. There's the AI. I got to talk to the AI to talk to the compiler. But whatever. Talk to the compiler. But I talk to the compiler because I want to talk to the computer. And I talk to the computer, I want the compiler to tell the computer to do some stuff. But I only do that because I want to talk to the end user. I want the end user. That's who I'm trying to communicate with. But wait, no. The person I'm trying to communicate is the other developers. And in fact, I'm trying to communicate with all these things at the same time. I have to communicate with the compiler, the computer, the end user, and the developers, and maybe the AI, all at the same time. So stop thinking very narrow and linearly, and always be aware of like this whole group that you're trying to communicate with. In an industry, typically full of nerds that don't like to communicate it to anyone, Really is the conclusion. So that's it. Change the way you think. If you can change the way you think, I believe that you write code the same way you think, right? It's literally, coding is like, oh, here's how I would do it in my head. I better write that down. And, you're not going to change how you code unless you change the way you think. And that's the goal of today. Today is done. Today was fun. Tomorrow is another one. The end. Can't possibly be questions, is there? Any questions about anything at all? Why? Like, obviously, I'm open season to like anything unexpected. What's that? Dereference a void, yeah. Like, see, like, look into the void, think about it for a while. Who knows what'll come up? You guys got the wrong version of the like draft worked, but the recursive part, I didn't have enough time. Which is the Hanako? A ninja and a Jedi. That's in the speaker description. Everyone knows that I'm a Jedi. My son's here. When my kids were really young, I tried to convince them I was a Jedi, and like there's like something's about to fall off the table. As a parent, you can see it's going to fall off the table, and then you're like, and you catch it, and you're like, see, I saw that. It was like I could see into the future like a Jedi, right? I don't know. Anything else? Ta-da. Okay. Thank you.